Hi everyone, my name is Priscilla Galindo. I'm going to be doing my Adaptations presentation on mental illness, including bipolar disorder. So, for an introduction and for a definition on mental illnesses, by definition, mental illnesses are a wide range of conditions that affect mood, thinking, and behavior. Some of the most common mental illnesses, which are the ones that I'll be talking about today in this presentation, are depression, anxiety, and bipolar disorder. Other forms of mental illness are dementia, ADHD, schizophrenia, OCD, PTSD, and eating disorders. Children who have mental illnesses are characterized as having serious difficulties in the way they learn, behave, and/or handle their emotions. The difficulties they face cause a lot of distress throughout their day. So we're going to go into some statistics about mental illness in the US. So at least 1 in 5 or 20% of school-aged children are affected by a mental health condition. The two most common conditions among children and adolescents are anxiety, followed by depression. But children can have other difficulties that affect their ability to fully take part in and benefit from their classroom experiences. These include attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, which is ADHD, autism spectrum disorder, and eating disorders. According to a website called CDC, 7.4% of children aged 3 to 17 years, approximately 4.5 million, have a diagnosed behavior problem. More statistics, 7.1% of children aged 3 to 17 years, which is approximately 4.4 million, have diagnosed anxiety. 3.2% of children aged 3 to 17 years, approximately 1.9 million, have diagnosed depression. Having another disorder is most common in children with depression. So, about 3 in 4 children aged 3 to 17 years with depression also have anxiety, which is 73.8%. And almost 1 in 2 have behavior problems, which is 47.2%. Mental, behavioral, and developmental disorders begin in early childhood. 1 in 6 U.S. children aged 2 to 8 years of age, which is 17.4%, had a diagnosed mental, behavioral, or developmental disorder. BP, which is bipolar disorder, is a recurrent familial disorder that occurs in 1 to 3% of youth, particularly in adolescents. So now we're going to jump into the accommodations. So, just like many of us know, in public and private schools, there are some people in the schools that usually handle, situations like this. So there's guidance counselors, social workers, nurses, psychologists. They're the ones that handle student mental health concerns. And keep in mind that by law, schools are required to offer some level of accommodation to students with mental health needs. The nature and extent of that support will depend on your child's particular condition and the resources at the school's disposal. So, although schools are required to have these types of people there to offer support, um, it really kind of depends on how good it is at like school by school. So now we're going to jump into some adaptations and strategies for students with depression. So for students with depression, you want to allow them to move around. You want to allow them to have breaks. Um, Maybe it could be like during recess, I don't know, maybe you accommodate them to have maybe a little longer recess, or during the day, you allow them to just go walk outside to get a drink of water at the water fountain. So you want to allow them to move around and set mini milestones for them. So usually people with depression, including children, they tend to feel like Um, like they just have so much going on that it's just kind of hard to see like the bigger picture. Depression, it brings you down. It's like severe sadness. So really like giving them mini milestones for them to complete, I feel like that would really benefit them and just kind of boost their confidence up in life in general. During difficult times, give hard copies of notes. So this will be really good for like, when they're taking notes in class, and they just can't, concentrate because all they're feeling is depressed, all they're feeling is sad. So I think that, you know, kind of accommodating with that strategy, giving them a hard copy of notes because you still want them to succeed. Like, it's not them not wanting to take the notes, it's their mental illness that's kind of keeping them, kind of hindering them from doing that. So you want to accommodate them in that way because you still want them to succeed. Break tasks into smaller workable tasks. So again, that kind of goes with the mini milestones. Um, they could they could get overwhelmed with really big tasks, and they might not feel confident in themselves because of how they feel emotionally to handle big tasks. So you want to break it up into smaller little tasks so they can feel like they're accomplishing more. And then lastly, keep a record of their accomplishments to share for the times they need to be reminded. So this is really good for students that feel like they're not maybe moving in life. Maybe they feel like they're not um, kind of improving in their grades or anything like that. So you want to keep a record of their accomplishments, maybe like their finest work or projects that they've completed, just to remind them like, hey, you did this, you can do that again, just kind of being like their support. All right, so now adaptations and strategies for students with anxiety. So you want to provide consistent structure, and I think that this is really, really important for students with anxiety because they tend to feel like, you know, what's going to happen next? Oh, this is different. I don't know what's going to happen now. Like, you know, I think we all know kind of what anxiety is. You feel panicky, you're unsure of what's going on, and you're unsure of what's going to happen with the changes going on. So I think that providing a consistent structure, like a schedule every single day that you are sticking to in your class, I feel like that's important for those students. And that's really important for all students too. Redirect students whenever they are off task. So, with anxiety, they can go off in their thoughts. So, I think it's important to kind of pay attention when they're going off task with their thoughts and they're not focusing on their work at hand. I think it's important to redirect them and kind of just, help them stay on task. Um, Again, with the consistent structure, you want to post a schedule and have predictable classroom routines and expectations so they don't feel like, there's so much change going on and they don't have to think about that the whole time. They can tend to think like, oh, I don't know what's going on today. This with this teacher, I don't really know. She's different. Like the class is different every single day. So you want to post a schedule. You want to have predictable routines so they don't feel anxious about, class. They don't feel anxious about coming to class. Try to eliminate stressful situations. I really do think that's important for students with anxiety and also for students in general. Go slow when introducing new situations. So, again, with change, um, it can really trigger something because they can feel, well, I don't know what's going to happen from this new situation. I don't really know what's going to happen um, with this situation. So, it's important to kind of go slow. If you have a new routine that you're going to implement, kind of start off slow. Or if there's going to be a change in the classroom schedule, I feel like that should be introduced slow, especially with those students. And now, adaptations and strategies for students with bipolar disorder. So you want to utilize functional behavior assessments to understand purpose of behaviors if they exist and find positive behavior supports. You want to have students check in with someone on a regular basis to help detect mood for the day. And I think that's that's really essential because you know with bipolar disorder you have really high highs and then you have really low lows. So it's important to see, you know, if they check in with maybe like a counselor or a different type of support at your school, it's important that they check in and maybe they can let you know, like, you know, today they seem like they're going to be, you know, in a good mood. Or, you know, today they are just having a bad day. They're going to be in a really bad mood today. So I think that's important to kind of set the day for a teacher and kind of to help the teacher understand in what kind of day the student's going to be in. Help student practice ways to communicate feelings. So I think this is important, especially with like the younger kids that have this disorder, because they still don't know how to communicate their feelings. Like they might lash out, they might get in a fight with a different student, they might throw things, they might get mad at you. So I think it's important to kind of communicate how to like best practices of how to communicate feelings with these students, and then identify a safe place the student can go to regain composure when frustrated or angry. So of course you want to make sure that it's a safe place, that you're still keeping an eye on them. You don't want to just say just go walk around the school for like 10 minutes and come back. Like you don't want to say that, but you want to establish a safe place for the student to go. Maybe it's like a, you know, a little private corner in your classroom, like it's your little like reading nook or something where they can go sit on a beanbag and just kind of compose themselves when they are frustrated or angry at other students or even you. So I think that's important to establish. So implications for students with depression. So of course, every student will, you know, vary on their depression. Some students might have severe, some might have less severe. So for a child who has depression, their classroom environment can be upsetting to them. They could find everything to be unstimulating and or upsetting. They could feel too down to go to school every day. They might feel too lethargic to even leave their bed. And for academics, they could possibly not be interested in the activities, in learning, and in the content being taught. They could also be uninterested in doing homework at home because they are not motivated. They could also lack energy to do so. For social behavior, they could lose interest in things they once liked doing. So, for example, they might lose interest in the sports that they once liked playing, in reading, or even playing with friends. Implications for students with anxiety. So, the implications for a student with anxiety in the classroom environment, they might be unable to concentrate or focus on schoolwork. This might be the case because they are too consumed with the thoughts of fear and worry. This could also be the case for their academics. They might feel too unfocused to do homework at home. They might not respond well to change in the classroom. And for social behavior, they might be too anxious to try new things, make new friends, or make friends in general, talk to their teachers, and so on. The implications for students with bipolar disorder. It can vary greatly as well, like depression. Some students might have this more severely, some might have it less severely, and it depends. So, some people have severe, like I said, and when they have bipolar disorder, like I've said before, they can have really high highs and they can have really low lows. So, they might be on top of the world one day and they might be just so low, like it's a different person basically on a different day. Or it could even be, you know, it could switch in a day. They might come into school just so happy, in a good mood, ready to learn, and then during the day just drops and, you know, teacher doesn't even know how to handle that. So it's important that we understand the strategies and the accommodations for these students. So in terms of their classroom setting, the student might get easily hurt, angry, and upset by other classmates and or their teachers. In academics, their teacher could notice that they go through phases of motivation, trying, working hard. They could also notice the phases of lack of motivation, depression, and lethargy. In terms of social behavior, it might create a strain on friendships because of the mood swings that the student goes through. So, like we said, they might experience the lows and the highs in one given day many times. So, it's hard to know, uh, it's very difficult for the teacher to know what mood they're going to be in a given day. So it's important to do the check-in with um, a counselor, or a different type of aid or support at the school. So now we're just going into the resources for teachers and parents. So for parents, I found an article. It's called "Ensuring Your Child is Supported at School" by Deborah Offner. And then I found two websites for parents to also use as resources. So the first one is just, um, oh, I'm sorry. So the first one was the article by Deborah Offner, and then the second one was the tip sheet for parents. So the tip sheet is really useful. You could find it on the website that I have right here. It's how to navigate problems at school. And you could find it if you scroll down, and it just says tip sheet for parents. And then on that same website, I also found a list, a nice extensive bullet point list of accommodations and strategies for teachers on how to navigate students with all these types of disorders. So just to conclude, this is my last slide. Many students can have these types of disorders. They can have depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder. They all vary greatly from student to student. These adaptations and strategies, accommodations, whatever you want to call it, they can really vary student to student. Some students might benefit from the strategies we talked about. Some that have that same mental illness might not. So I think it's important to just kind of see with your student individually, kind of test things out, test different strategies out to see um, what truly will benefit them the best, because all students are different, all students respond differently. Some students are more sensitive, some are more kind of like hard to get to. So I think that it's important to just test it out with your individual students and see how we can best accommodate them so they can learn and they can continue to thrive in their education. Um, so, yeah, that's all I have for today. Thank you for listening to my adaptations presentation, and I just hope you guys have a great day. Thank you.